The NBA started again this week. 30 teams will play 82 games each in just 6 months. Playing multiple games a week across the country, teams will be on the road for weeks on end. So how do NBA teams travel from one stadium to another? Let's talk aviation. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps the channel grow. After 2 seasons heavily impacted by COVID, the NBA is going back to business as usual for the most part. After the NBA bubble in Disneyland after the end of the 2019-2020 season and the temporary relocation of the Toronto Raptors to Tampa, Florida to deal with travel restrictions. COVID certainly had an impact on how the games were scheduled. Last year, the NBA introduced 2-game series, where 2 teams would play back-to-back games in the same city, just like the MLB. While these series were a necessity in the previous season due to the more condensed schedule and to reduce the contact of players with one another, they will stay in the schedule this year to reduce travel. However, the measures can reduce travel, but road trips will remain a big part of the operations of an NBA team. This year, the Los Angeles Clippers have the longest road trip. They will play 8 games between January 20 and February 1st. The Clippers will play in Denver, Philadelphia, New York, Washington, Orlando, Miami, Charlotte and Indianapolis in the span of just 13 days. Some teams even have recurring road trips, like the San Antonio Spurs. Their famous rodeo road trip takes place each year in February, when their home avenue, the AT&T Center, is used for the annual San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo. This year, however, the rodeo road trip will be interrupted by the All-Star break, and thus there will be 2. Luckily for the players, they don't have to travel economy with JetBlue or Spirit, but they have the luxury of flying private. Most teams have entered an agreement with Delta Airlines for their travel needs. Delta has converted 11 Boeing 757-200 aircraft in an all-business configuration, with plenty of leg space, sleeper seats, large lavatories and a food and drink service that is adjusted to the preferences of each team. Planes are fitted with 72 seats, more than enough for the players, coaches and other support staff. During the 2015-2016 season, when Delta entered the agreement with almost all of the 30 teams, they mentioned that the revenue from these NBA flights was about $65 million over 1,700 flights during the regular season and the playoffs. This means that the cost of an average NBA flight was about $38,000. While Delta operates the flights, they don't own the planes. The planes are actually leased by a trust of the NBA. The deal, however, allows Delta to use the planes for non-NBA charter flights when they aren't needed by the NBA teams to fly across the country. As I mentioned before, not all teams participate in the deal. One of the most prominent teams are the Dallas Mavericks. The franchise, which is owned by Mark Cuban, has its own plane, or at least the owner lets them use one of his. The Mavericks get to use either a 757 or 767 for their road games. Just like ordinary commercial flights, NBA flights aren't safeguarded from incidents. On March 30 of 2021, the Utah Jazz were on their way to Memphis for a matchup against the Grizzlies, when shortly after takeoff the plane hit a flock of birds. The bird strike damaged the nose of the plane and resulted in a left engine fire. The pilots declared an emergency right away and the plane returned safely to Salt Lake International Airport. Luckily, all on board were physically unharmed. However, one of the Jazz's star players, Donovan Mitchell, opted not to take the next flight, but to sit this one out. The Jazz eventually ended up winning the game over the Grizzlies. Did you know about these NBA-specific planes from Delta and how the Mavericks get to use Mark Cuban's own private planes? If you were an NBA player, what would you like to have on board? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching and please consider subscribing to Let's Talk Aviation.